happens next is not my fault.
Oh my God.
We have a brand new game.
I was trying to contain myself. Oh my.
Go option one, not safe. These are insane.
And Brandon keep killing it.
What's good, Creative Fam? Brandon Washington here, and welcome back to another episode of Uncensored. Bro, I'm super excited about today's episode because today we're doing stuff that we've never done before. If you guys have tuned into the show before, you know it's not super uncommon for us to have guests on the show, but today you guys know of one guest that we're going to have on the show, but we actually are going to have a few extra ones sprinkling in throughout this show. So definitely be tuned in and stick around for that. But as you guys saw from the title and from the thumbnail, we got to talk about this new camera that just came out, the Lumix S9. And to help me put on this show, I have my amazing co-host. You guys see him every single week, Mr. Gerald Peak.
What's up, everybody?
What's up, bro?
Dude, glad to be here, chat. Here for you.
It is going to be a day.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a day. Look, this is the reason why we made this show.
I'm nervous.
Are you nervous?
A little nervous.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's the Uncensored show.
You never know what's going to be said.
You don't. It's a live show. We keep it a buck. You know what I mean? We try to have the most authentic, real, honest episode, but this is one where I feel like we're getting a little meta.
Yeah.
It's creators talking about the state of being creators.
Well, it's kind of crazy, too, because I think you called it last week.
I got it.
I think you called it last week, and then it felt like the whole internet blew up.
Well, our little section of the internet.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like we have a little section of the internet where we talk about cameras and we nerd out and we probably buy way more stuff than we need.
For sure.
But this little area felt like there was some stuff that, and I feel like it's only right for us to clear the air and talk about it as creators. Now, that said, we also have that new camera to talk about, but then I feel like there was a massive shakeup. Like Blackmagic did a massive shakeup this week, which is like completely thrown off everything I know when it comes to like the value of cameras and pricing of cameras. And I brought somebody in I want to talk about that with too. So we'll have some extra people to jump in with. But before we jump into the show, I want to quickly say that like this show is made possible and we're allowed to say whatever we want because we don't really take sponsors from camera brands for this show specifically. So we do have a sponsor today, and I want to quickly thank that sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. It is a website that helps you build a website. They make it incredibly easy by giving you pre-made templates that make the entire design process super simple. This means if you want to launch a website pretty quickly, Squarespace is the way to do it. On top of making the design part incredibly easy, they also have added in Squarespace AI, which will actually help you through the entire process, including SEO, to make sure that it's easy for your potential viewers to find your website. One of my favorite built-in features is actually the email marketing campaign. This means you can do everything you need from directly inside of Squarespace, and when you're ready to check out, they have an incredibly flexible payment process. Now, I actually built my entire website using Squarespace, and I am not a coder, never have learned coding, and so that's one of the best parts, is that if you are someone who wants to get your business up off the ground, start your new endeavor, sell products, whatever it might be, and you need a website in order to do that, honestly, the easiest way to do it for me has been with Squarespace, which is why I've had my website with them for years. And if you're still not sure about giving Squarespace a shot, you can definitely sign up for a free trial and build your website now. And when you're ready to launch, you can save 10% by using my link down below in the description. That's squarespace.com/Brandon Washington. And thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. All right, so I already saw it in the chat. Somebody commented that the lack of bananas in this episode is already disappointing. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm really excited to bring on today's guest, somebody who, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the leaders in our industry. I don't think anybody who makes videos in this space doesn't know who he is. And most of us, if we're being honest, we go to his content to make sure we didn't miss anything in our content because he's so thorough and he's so technical. And that's honestly one of the reasons why I like his content so much. So I want to bring up my guest and good friend, Mr. Gerald Undone. Bro, thank you so much for showing up on the show today.
Man, thank you. I'm flattered. Hi,
Dude,
thanks for having me on.
Do you have a banana real quick? Because people are not going to be happy if I don't have you show a banana in here.
I got these ones.
There we go. All right. See there, chat? So before y'all freak out, there are bananas in this video. But dude, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I've been wanting to have you on for a while. Love your content as a fan, but then also you're just a really cool guy. I know we've hung out a few times, so it's just always good to hang out with a friend.
Yeah, I mean, thanks a lot, man. And, I like you a lot, too. Your content's okay, but I like you as a person. Yeah.
Hey, you know what? I would expect nothing less from you, okay? My content is okay. I'm always trying to get better, just trying to catch up with you. I can't do the technical breakdowns. I just want to take the thing and go shoot with it.
No one can.
You're embarrassing me.
Only Gerald can.
Only Gerald can. Well, awesome, dude. Well, you know what? Let's not beat around the bush. We know why the people are here. You, how do I put this delicately for the uncensored audience? For those who have not been here before.
Brandon?
Yeah.
The chat's telling us there's a lot of echo.
A lot of echo. Where's the echo coming in from? Let's see. It must be coming in. Possibly. We'll see.
It's so weird because we don't hear it.
We don't hear the echo whatsoever. Let me see if I can make an adjustment.
It says
here.
Gerald is in space.
Gerald is in space. All right, let's see. Let's go to audio. Boom. And then we will go. All right, chat, let us know if that fixed the echo problem. Gerald, do us a favor. Tell the people a little bit about, really quick, I just need to have you speak a little bit just so we can make sure that the echo problem's not there. But tell the people who maybe don't know who you are, how do you classify your channel?
I think like broadly, I just say I'm in like photo, video, or camera. Recently, in one of those tweets, it's called a camera YouTube. And people are like, what the hell's camera YouTube? So, I guess, is that causing a problem, or is it...
Comments say, does Gerald have his phone and mic? Real bad echo from Gerald.
I thought I was only giving you this mic. Let me tap on this one.
I'm getting that one.
That's what I
On
hear.
our end, we're not getting any echo. Like in my ears, I don't hear any echo coming from you. Porter says that it's still there. So let's see. As you guys know, this is the Uncensored Show, and it is live. So this is how it works sometimes.
So let me think this through. I'm sending my mic into an interface, which is then connected to you. If you're hearing me proper, then that means I'm only sending you the one. Are you guys listening to me on headphones, or are you listening to me in the space? Like, can you hear me in the space, or only in your headphones?
No, just in headphones.
Just headphones, yeah.
Yeah, we can only hear you on headphones. So let's see.
The mic is like, I could check the settings on Ecamm and see if it's weird that you say you're hearing me fine. Toss me that mouse.
Let's pull that up. And then let's see. All right, Gerald, do us a favor. Do it one more time. Let me have you talk a little bit more, and then we'll make sure that we're good.
I'm going to change my microphone that I'm sending it to just to be double check.
Perfect. And then let's go ahead and kill the audio there. All right.
So
chat, let us know. Do you still
my-
hear the echo coming from Gerald?
Remote.
I double checked my input to you, and it's my good mic. That's all I'm apparently sending over.
I'm going to switch over to the feed so I can hear what they're hearing.
Yeah, go ahead and do that for me. Let's make sure this sounds good.
Better? This is me talking now. 1, 2, 3. Coming along and dance me. Here's the mouse. You want it back?
Someone said that was better. It was fixed. All right, let us know now if you're still getting the same issue, chat. Chat, let
Who
us know.
fixed it? You or me? We'll never know.
Well, that's right. It's like
It sounds fine to me.
Okay, there's everyone saying, yeah, there we go. That worked. We good. No. Sounds good to you? Are you hearing it again? Did it come back? I just want to make sure.
One person said it's back. Everybody else is saying it's perfect now.
No, he's still echoing.
Here we go.
Just Gerald.
Just Gerald is echoing? Someone says it's perfect now, but it's like everybody's on a delay.
Yeah, it's back.
You can hear it back?
Just Gerald.
Just Gerald is echoing back?
It's definitely.
Wait, you messed it up.
It's definitely echoed.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute.
So here we go.
Just
I know
Gerald.
what it is. Let's do this. It was when I did that. That sent him out to the TV.
You done broke it again.
I broke it again.
Not you. It was a comment.
It's a comment. All right, Gerald, do me a favor. Speak a little bit.
Yeah, of course. This is me talking. I hope it's something I'm doing. I feel like it's got to be on your end, because if you're hearing me right, then it's got to be what I'm sending over the internet is right, and then something's going on over there, right?
Okay, so I think he's fixed now.
Okay.
His audio is, for whatever reason, coming through the TV for us, but you can hear him. I can hear him.
He's good now.
And he's good now on chat. He's good on live.
The delay is long, but I can hear it.
Okay.
No echo.
No echo? Good. All right. We're fixed. We're back, and
That's
we are
live streaming,
live.
baby. That's live
Bro,
streaming.
that is
every
live
time.
Look, I gotta say, when it comes to live streaming, this has been a journey. Like, we've been live streaming since January. We committed to doing this. We committed to this show, which we do every single Friday. But I feel like we had a system and it was working, but I did not like the quality of the video when it was all up and done. Now we have switched to Ecamm, and I love the quality. I think the video looks better when we actually go live. But man, it is a journey. It's like learning filmmaking all over again.
100%. I have the same struggles, and then whenever you do get something working, then like you said, yeah, you tweak something, and then you're back to zero. Where you're like, oh man, you know.
Right. And what's crazy is, like, you do it, and then somebody sees it live. They tell you have the problem. So you then try to, quote unquote, fix that problem. But then they don't know that it's been fixed until like 10, 15 seconds later, whenever they get the delay.
Totally.
Like, it is the hardest thing to gameplay it out in real time. But, oh my goodness, I love this. Look, let's pull up this one. Let's pull up this one here, because this is exactly what happened for you guys. Can we pull this up? It says Lumix is sabotaging this video. That's what the comment says. Lumix is sabotaging the video. No, they're not. Maybe they are. Did they speak to you, Gerald?
Were they unhappy?
We've been hacked. This has never happened before. No. But dude, so let's get back on track, because to that comment's point, we did talk about, like, the fact that you posted on Threads, on Twitter, on Instagram. Like, you made sure everybody knew that something feels off right now in the camera space. And we have this little bubble, which I think, because it's our little bubble, we feel very protective of it. But there's, like, it felt like with this new S9 release, and it wasn't just from your post. Ironically, as Gerald mentioned last week, we touched on this topic of, like, you know, trusting YouTubers and, like, why do people consume content? And honestly, we brought up the point because we just wanted to hear from our audience to see, like, you know, where do you get your news from? Where's the value for you? But then the S9 comes out, all these videos come out, and the audience feels like something's off. And then you made your post. And so I just wanted to, like, start off just by asking you, like, I've never seen you release a script for a video before you released it. So what first made you feel like you wanted to release that script? And then ultimately, what made you kind of think about, this is a topic that I might want to cover right now?
Yeah, those are good questions. That's interesting for me. So thanks. And the script thing was because I started with a tweet. It was just a tweet that was like, I think I said something like this. The launch of the S9 is more interesting from a evaluation of you know, camera, YouTube, and Lumix as a brand, and than it is about the camera itself. I don't find that camera particularly interesting, but I found sort of the stuff around it more interesting. But what's been happening, or rather, a thing that happens all the time with YouTube, is people are going to read something and then they're going to put a lot of themselves into it. And so I was reading the responses and I was like, oh, that's not the direction I was thinking at all in my head. So the script was more context to the tweet and being like, look, I thought, let me take this tweet and turn it into a video real quick. And then I'll post that. But obviously that's not a full video. That's like, 400 words. And then I'll see, maybe this will help clarify the tweet, and then the responses that I'll get to that portion will be more accurate, so I can gauge whether or not they're actually, like, it's because sometimes there's a bit of like, this is inside baseball. Does anybody actually want to talk about this? You know what I mean? Is this an interesting thing? Like, cameras might be interesting, but knowing about the marketing of a camera, maybe nobody cares. So it was me kind of feeling that out, and maybe a little bit of airing some frustration simultaneously. But you will be happy to know, I think, unless you tell me afterwards, you're like, by the way, I hated that, and I hope you don't turn it into a video. But you'll be happy to know that this morning, before I jumped on here, I didn't finish the script. I printed out that exact thing that I posted on Twitter. So it was like a couple of paragraphs and then some bullet points. I put it in front of me right here on the table, and I talked to the camera for an hour and a half, and I'm editing it. And so I cut it down, maybe I'm like halfway cut, and then jumped on the call here. So maybe later on today, it's gonna be like like a not a common video for me, just kind of like two camera talking, jump cuts, bunch of words, publish, forget about it. So that's gonna go up later today. But you get the first kind of scoop on it. So
That's it. That's what we do here. Inside scoops, you know? That's what Uncensored is all about. No, honestly, I'm really interested to hear your take, because I'll be honest, like, as somebody who is in the space, who obviously makes videos, I always feel weird talking about this kind of stuff, because I'm like, if there is a problem, like, I know I'm part of the problem. But, like, I also love to hear other creators' takes on it, because even at the beginning of the year, we had, you know, Caleb on the show, DSLR video shooters, for those of you guys who don't know, Caleb Pike. And he had made a video about like his whole philosophy around YouTube. And that video was super helpful to me, you know, when he made his video about if he was going to quit or not quit or whatever. And that helped me out a lot. And I do think that there should be a little bit of inside baseball every now and again that we share with our audience, because it is normally the diehards that do care about those things that I believe that would be, you know, yeah, that video may not get as many views, but for those who it really matters for the most, I think that's what's really important. And being able to give context to our content that we put out, I do think is important, because at the end of the day, like, we are reviewing cameras, and I'll be honest with you, like the S9 at first for me was like, I didn't care. Like, it's not going to move the needle for me. It's not even in my wheelhouse. Not 99% of the time, I wouldn't even talk about it. But it did kind of shed a little bit of light on our industry a little bit. And I was kind of in the same boat as you when you put out that tweet, which is like, this is a little bit more interesting about like the way we do it as creators. But I know like in the chat, and people are going to say this. And so like, I just believe that when it comes to doing this show, that we just attack it head on. Like, you and I have both been on the same side though, when it comes to going to these trips and talking about these cameras. And like, we know that the brands are trying to, you know, sort of wine and dine us a little bit to make sure that we have a good experience, which will maybe influence the way we talk about the cameras. But how do you, as a reviewer and as somebody who does have influence when it comes to people choosing to buy something and not buy something, not allow that bias to infiltrate your content? Like, how do you mentally separate yourself from saying like, thank you, Sony, this was a great event, but I still need to objectively talk about this camera?
Yeah, I have, it's a good question. Obviously, I don't perfectly. No, I don't think anybody is perfectly in control of their biases and stuff like that. But I do have sort of a bit of a code of ethics that I work within. And when it comes to press trips, I basically tell all the brands in advance, I'm like, yeah, you can invite me if you want, but I'm not going to make anything while I'm there. I don't make, and there might, if you look back at my catalog, you might find one or two things where like I had some clips where I was at something, or I think one time like the S1H might have been the one time where I actually filmed something at a press event, because I don't think I was getting a loaner. So I was like, I'll just quickly film something while I'm here. But generally speaking, and for the last couple of years, definitely, the policy has been, you can send me wherever you want to send me, but I'm not making anything while I'm there. So if you want me to cover the camera, send it to me ahead of time. So it's because some brands won't send you then, right? So then I'm like, well, then here's what you can do. You can send me the camera while you got everybody else doing whatever at the press event. I'll make my video at home, and then I'll post it at the same time that you do your launch there. So you can still have your little embargo thing, but I'll do it at my own time at home. Or I'll go to your press event, I'll sit around and chat with other YouTubers. You can leave me out of all the other marketing crap, and then when I get home, mail me a camera, and we'll figure it out, you know. And then I'll make again a video in my time. I've just kind of stuck to that, and some brands have been cool with it. Sony surprisingly has been cool with literally everything, whatever nonsense I throw at them, they've been cool with it. Other brands, not so much. So yeah, it's just kind of like telling. I've always thought the idea of having a call, a Zoom call, whatever it is, ahead of time, and it's like, brief me on the camera, and I'll tell you whether or not I care about it, and then you can make a call as the marketing department whether or not you want to be involved in that. You can call me about a press trip, tell me about it. I can tell you whether. That's always been my policy. I'll be honest with you, and your expectations. That way, there's no surprise. I don't know. I mean, that's my policy. Is just I don't make stuff at press events. And does that as far as how does it control my bias? Well, I develop different biases then, which is like, and I talk about this a lot in the video that I'm going to post later today. Is that I almost have a positive bias towards Sony marketing because they've been so. You know how people always say, like, well, YouTubers have to say something positive or else they're going to get canceled from the list and they're not going to get sent stuff or whatever. I've been the most critical of Sony as a brand in terms of how they do things, their engineering. Like, if you look at my releases, it might be like for every 2 things that I like, there's 1 or 2 things that I just trash. And they have never not sent me something, never not invited me to a press event. They invite me to a press event, I go, I'm not making anything. You're not getting anything out of me. I'm barely even going to make an Instagram story. And they're like, that's fine. And then I go and I do exactly what I say, and then they invite me to the next one. So if anything, I developed a bias for Sony because their marketing department isn't punitive. They don't do that canceling you when you don't toe the line or whatever thing. At least that's been my experience. Maybe other people have a different one. But so I've developed I actually kind of like their marketing now because it's like if Sony wants to send me something, I'll be like, yeah, you can send that to me because I know I can say whatever I want and you're not going to give me a hard time. I don't know. Is this useful information?
Yeah, no, I think it is. I mean, I have a different experience. You know, I mean, like with Sony specifically, I can definitely attest to what you're saying because like I got invited to the last Sony Kondo trip and they released the A7C2, I think it was, and it's not really a camera for me. Like I'm really in the filmmaking space and like yes, it's a great like YouTube camera. It's got the swivel screen, whatever. And can you use it for filmmaking? Sure, but it just wasn't a camera that like I knew I was going to use on set at any point. And so I didn't make anything about it. And I knew for a fact, I was like, oh man, I'm going to make them mad. They're not going to invite me to anything else ever again. But that hasn't seemed to be the case. It seems like they have been totally open and like they are open to feedback because I also made a review on the A7 IV and I'm pretty sure I ripped that camera for overheating on me because it did it at the worst time ever. And They took it on the chin. They took that feedback, and I think they even released some updates to like sort of help with that. So I think that is. Go ahead.
I was gonna say what they always told me, which I think is reasonable, is that they are okay with sort of anything as long as it seems like you're trying to be fair. If you're just out to be sensational and get views and clicks by just trashing something for no reason, then they might take an exception. But anything short of that. If it seems like you're acting in good faith or being fair, even if you're like, hey, that's overheated and ruined my whatever. I mean, if you're being fair, you're being fair, and that's and I like that about them. Where I've had experience with other brands where it's like I was operating on good faith, but they just didn't like something. So because they didn't like something, then you're out. And that's no way to operate, And that's probably one of the reasons why I was angry about this Lumix launch. Not angry, but like frustrated with it,
So I have a question. You mentioned in your tweet that you won't be reviewing this camera. And I think this is something that like as creators, I think is really important because I believe that like, when it comes to YouTube, like we're all just like people, right? We're just individual people. We nerd out about something. We make enough videos at it that eventually we get blessed with opportunities and free gear or free trips or whatever it might be. But there is something, I think, to what you make videos about, and then there is something to like what you choose not to make videos about that I think is equally as important. Because like my audience who watches like my main content knows that like I do film and I do commercial work. And so like most of the gear and stuff that I talk about is around that space. How do you choose what not to make a video about or like gear that, because like I feel like you're in a different space where you are really educating about almost every camera that seems to come out, like from Baranos to ZVE1s, like you really do hit the spectrum. So for you, like how do you decide what videos you are going to make and what videos you're just like, this really isn't interesting. I'm just not going to touch it.
It's a feeling. It's the same thing when what you described with all those other cameras you had your gut check on. For me, it's about a personal interest. I had to transition because originally when I was starting my channel, not originally, but like when I was trying to grow, I was covering a lot of stuff. And some of the stuff either maybe I wasn't as qualified to speak on or wasn't that interested in it, but I was like, this is a video that I think will do well, grow my audience. I'm fortunate enough to be in a place where I don't have to do that. I don't have to cover every camera. I don't have to worry about making sure that I'm staying in the news all the time and that kind of thing. So I pick the cameras, the lenses, whatever that I am actually interested in. And that's majorly motivated by, am I going to use it for, which sounds funny, but for making YouTube videos, because it becomes like a weird little self-fulfilling circle where it's like, what new camera or lens will make me making more videos about new cameras and lenses easier to make? Well, and so then you go down some weird little spiral, right? But that is a lot of it. So if there's a new lens or something, and I think to myself like, ooh, that focal length, I've been looking for something a little bit faster in that focal length because I have an idea based on camera number 2. So maybe that'll work over there. Yeah, go ahead and send that lens. And then I try to test it broadly, but there always is a portion of that video which is like, but in my very specific use case, it did not do what I needed to do, or it did do what I needed to do. And I try to tell people ahead of time, it's like, now I'm about to do something stupid that I realize isn't good on set, but it's useful for this weird thing I'm doing over here. And it did it beautifully,
Yeah.
So it's all
Well, I
personal
like
interest.
those weird things because, I tell people all the time, like, most of being a filmmaker is like just like figuring out how to get out of problems. Because like as someone who is on set, like you get on set and it's like, oh, we need to like jerry rig this camera over here, or like the client asks for some weird object, or they have like some weird crazy idea, and you got to figure all that stuff out. And I think that like when you go into those weeds, or you're like saying like, here's the actual usable dynamic range, and I'm going to do this crazy test that you would never use on set. But I'm going to blast this camera and just really try to see how far I can push it. I think that's still good information for creators. So that way you can know how far you could really push the gear that you're buying. Because like, I'm just going to, this is my opinion. I'm not going to speak for you, but I just feel like everything that has come out probably in the last, I don't know, 3 to 5 years has been like amazing. So like the differences
2020
is like, it's always those nuances are in those small little details.
100%. And some of them don't matter, but I think so. Like the S9, for example, it's just like so there's a bit of like spill the tea on that one too, but they were okay. Lumix told me that I wasn't going to like the camera, or like not interested, or that I wouldn't like. They're like, we don't think you need to come to Japan. We don't think that you're going to want to review this camera because you're not going to dig it. And I said, well, can you still brief me on it just so I can make my own assessment? And they're like, sure. They were right. I'm not interested in the camera. But I mean, that doesn't mean that I think that's the right way to go about doing business. I just think that, they were right. So they gave me the option though. After Japan, they had a call and they were like, if you want us to send you one, let us know. And I was like, nah, that's okay. You're right. And also like, I knew that like all the videos were coming out the next day, and I was like, I'll just let those people post their videos. And then I watched them as a viewer, which, to double back to your original question, I think is probably what gave me a different perspective, or what made me want to make that post was more like, as a viewer now, who has maybe a little bit of inside information because I did have the briefing and I do know a lot about Lumix, but as a viewer watching everybody's videos to try and tell me about this camera, YouTube, I had a completely different experience than when I'm on the other side of it. And I started maybe, I don't want to say siding with the commenters, but definitely seeing it from their perspective more than I would have seen it before if I was just trying to make a video at the time. And
Gotcha.
the weird thing for me was that a lot of these creators I know what their motivations are. I know that they're trying to do a good job. I know that they're whatever, but I could see it from the other side. And they'd be like, hold up. Press events are weird. Like, that's kind of like where I got it from like, cause like, But so to answer the earlier question, yeah, it wasn't interesting. So I was like, what am I gonna do? Make a video where I already made a video on the S5 and it's the same sensor.
Right.
So I'm gonna say, oh, it's blue. Ooh, yeah, that's not a video. And so if I'm not interested in my own, if I look in the mirror and pitch the video to myself and I walk away from my own idea, then why am I gonna make it for anybody else to watch? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. No, I think that's a
anyway.
really, I mean, that's a very similar cadence to me. Like it's actually one of the reasons why if you go through my catalog, there actually hasn't been that many like gear reviews. Like actually I stopped making gear reviews in general. It's more like just like my experience doing a thing and I used a piece of gear doing it. Because most cameras at this point were so good that like there really wasn't a story behind a lot of these cameras. Like you would get it and you'd be like, okay, it's good. It's got usable dynamic range. It's got great features, 4K, 8K, whatever. It's just a bunch of specs. And so for me, it just became like the camera had to be like interesting. There had to be a story there. And I like that you
Absolutely.
had that same like, it's not necessarily like a story, but it was more like, this is just, there's nothing really interesting here for me to say. So I don't feel obligated just to make a video for the sake of making one. Because I know I can make it and get a bunch of views, which for me as a fan of your content, I think is actually like, you know, appealing because I'm like, oh, okay, cool. If Gerald makes a video, I know he actually cares about whatever he's making a video about. So I can tune in and truly just like enjoy it knowing that he actually cared about it.
Yeah, thanks, man. I mean, sometimes I don't like it, but I was still like the Burano, for example. I was very interested in that product, so I wanted to play with the Burano because I was legitimately interested. And then when I was playing with it, I was like, oh, I'm kind of mixed on it now. Like I like some things and I don't like some things, and I'm like, I guess I'll still make the video and I'll try to present balance because I want to maybe talk to the same people that had the same interest that I did originally, but it was still motivated by being interested in the product. And my advice to anybody would be not to sort of, if you can, like if you can afford to, if you don't have to have inventory for sponsors or you're not trying to pump out enough videos, like if you can afford to do it, would be to only stick to the products that you, or whatever topics you're legitimately interested in, and not just try and cover everything. Because I do think that it has an impact on how the audience sees you. And I also think it has an impact on how you're going to go about making your videos. And also I think then the whole relationship with brands becomes more important because you got to have access to everything. You got to review everything. You got to stay good with everybody. And it becomes way more, you know, now you're like your own little PR person than you are just reviewing what you want to review with sort of a sincerity to it. You're more like a magazine that has to cover everything to stay in business. And I think that changes I think that naturally changes how you, like, I don't want to say your ethics. You could still go about it with your best intentions. I know a lot of the creators do, but I just think you'd make it so much easier on yourself and so much easier on the audience's skepticism and just everything if you only pursue the topics that you were legitimately interested in and then presented the results based on your actual reaction of like, I was pleased, I was disappointed, motivated by me being curious, you know? That's my advice anyway.
No, I mean, I feel like I'm in the same boat as you. I like for example, on this channel, it's very obvious that I have like a red bias. And that's because I love their cameras. Like I've loved their cameras since before I could even afford to shoot on them. But I think that's a bias that people can calibrate themselves to. So that way, like, even if you're not a Red fan, you're like, okay, Brandon's just saying that because he's a Red fan, which is like, yeah, that's fine. But I'm not trying to be a fan of like every single camera that comes out and every single product that comes out because like you mentioned with the S9, like for me, it's a camera that like, I know it's not made for me. Like I know there's no part of that camera that was designed for a shooter like me and I assume my audience is a lot like me as well. So I'm just like, because it doesn't make sense. Like there's certain things about it that like, and I'd love to get your take on it. I know you're not going to do a full review, but if you could give us like a snippet idea just from just like looking at the specs, because I don't get it. Like I don't know where that camera is supposed to sit. And it's kind of like, that's the part to me that's interesting because it's confusing. I don't know where this, like, is it a consumer camera that has like some pro features like open gate, or is it just like a really neutered mirrorless camera that's supposed to be like they have LUTs in it? And I'm like, okay, but like who's doing that? Like I just don't understand it. And you're you're way more educated when it comes to all these cameras. So if you could give us like your 2-minute take on like what is this camera, Gerald? Help me out.
I think it's easier than I think you're overthinking it. It's two things. It is a response to Fujifilm, who makes X100 cameras that are, every camera brand saw the popularity of the scarcity of the X100 V and like, oh, it's just selling used for more than new and nobody can get it and all that stuff. Why? What do they like about it? And then everybody's kind of made their version of it. And Lumix, so that's half of it. The big chunk of the story is it's a response to Fuji camera. Look, vintage, look, colorways. They're real-time LUTs that are meant for video monitoring have been converted into, like a storefront in a sense, marketplace, whatever you want to call it, share site, where you can share Fuji film cook emulations or whatever. It's that. They're making an X100. At the same time, they are using the sensor from the S5 II, S5 IIX, and it is harder to write a whole new platform to remove a bunch of features than it is just to leave features in. So the camera is basically the same camera as the S5 II, but just rehoused to capture Fuji audience without removing things that maybe would make sense to be removed. That makes it confusing. Don't think about those things as confusing. Just think about them like, well, why spend time writing code to take something out when leaving it in doesn't have a con other than we can put a time limit on it. And the time limit things are actually to Lumix's credit because they rate their cameras for much more strict environments than other brands do. So they have to like be good for like 40 degrees Celsius, which is like, I don't know, 105 or something Fahrenheit. So if they say it's good for 15 minutes, it's good for 15 minutes. Maybe there's virtue to that than anything. And then the only other component, I think, the open gate aspect you said, I believe they've gotten a ton of feedback that the market that they were targeting likes open gate because of the adaptability between two different frame options for vertical content. And I never use open gate, so I'm talking up my butt here a little bit, but I do know that there is a pipeline of feedback that goes, we love open gate. Look at me. I can shoot vertical and horizontal, or not. I can cut vertical and horizontal from the same shot. That's great for me for posting to TikTok, Shorts, Reels, whatever. And also if I want to post long form. And I think they lean into that more with like frame guides to be like, well, now you can do simultaneous frame guides for both ends. So if the conversation is they're appealing to that type of creator, I believe it. But there also totally is like a give me that Fuji money. There's a little bit of that in there for sure,
Well, I mean, I definitely was one of those people who wanted a Fuji and couldn't get it because it was, sold out everywhere. And then it was selling, like you said, for higher than retail, which I refuse to pay higher than retail for that camera. But yeah, it definitely feels like that makes it make a lot more sense for me, actually. So,
and whether they're right about that or not, that's up to discussion. Like whether or not it is a Fuji X100, I'm not saying that it is a replacement of that. I'm saying that that's the closest thing Lumix could make to get some of that Fuji action. Because the mistake that all these brands make is what makes Fuji cool for some people is a completely different thing than what makes Lumix cool. And really, I believe everybody should just stay in their lanes because we've got different brands. Not everybody. This was like the criticism of Sony, right? It's like, why does Sony have 5 different segments of cameras? It's like, why don't you do the thing that you do and then leave the other segments to everything else? And then you get the confusing, wait, that's the A7S3 sensor you've used like 4 times now in 4 different cameras. And then you're trying to create a value calculation.
Because of money.
I don't even know what to... Yeah.
It's because of money. We know why. But we said this, what was it, last week? That Sony technically hasn't released a camera in like 6 months or something crazy. So like this seems to be like the quietest they've ever been. I don't know if they're like waiting on Canon to do something nuts first and then they're going to drop right afterwards. But this has been the quietest Sony has been. But I totally understand that complaint of Sony feeling like there's so many cameras. It's like, I don't know which vertical I'm supposed to move up. And this camera is like cheaper, but it has a newer feature, and this one has the same sensor as another one. That's honestly normally why I go to your videos, is when it comes down to, like, especially in the world of Sony, like I was one of the lucky few to get the FX3 early, and I was so mad that I got the FX3 early in a way, because I was like, Gerald's video is not going to come out till the embargo comes out. And I was sitting there with like the FX3 and the A7S3 in my hand, and I was like, I am so confused. I need a Gerald Undone video to understand, like, this is the exact same sensor, even though they say it's not, but it is.
Gerald, blink twice if a new Sony A7S4 is coming out.
You know, this is always such a funny question that I get asked, because it's like, if there was and I acted coy, or if there wasn't and I acted coy, how do you know the difference? But this is what I said to somebody. I recently listed my my A7S3 up for auction, and when somebody asked me if I knew about a new Sony camera, that's what I was doing. I said, I promise you that I would never sell you one of my old cameras right before a new one was coming out, and I knew that information. I would wait till the new one came out, and then I would sell you my old camera. So the fact that I'm selling an A7S3, like auctioning one off, that should let you know that I do not have any information that that camera is about to be, like, you know,
So
made
what you're
obsolete
saying
or whatever.
is,
He did not disagree though.
so what you're saying is, they might be coming out with the new A7S4.
We know they're coming out with something. We
you
just
heard
don't know
it here
where.
first.
Oh my gosh. So what you're telling us is we cannot use your listings as leverage for Sony rumors, is what you're saying.
That's right.
What
I'm
can
saying
we
that
use?
I can tell you this. I'm not sitting on anything. Like, I know that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not sitting on a camera that I'm just, like, being coy about. I don't
So there's
know
nothing
anything
just like
anybody
right
else
out
does.
of frame in like a MKBHD style.
Should we check?
There
Brandon?
is stuff right out of frame, but it's not anything that should concern any of the conversations we've been having.
Okay, chat. We're studying his wide frame right now. I don't see anything. All right. Well, you guys are normally better than me. Take a screenshot, see what you can find in there. But all right. Last thing I did want to touch on is something that I've noticed that you've done, and that, like, I've actually done here on the channel too, which is something that, like, I think creators in our space really should do. Is, like, you found another outlet, which I thought was really interesting. So recently you've been doing I guess you've been doing it for a while. I know it kind of took a hiatus during COVID, but, you know, I feel like it's back in full swing, and you've been doing quite a few different ones. But you've been doing these, like, office tours with different creators and really looking at their creative space, which I think is cool in two fronts. One, we get the inside scoop, the inside look of, like, how these creators make their stuff. And what blows me away is, like, how much work a lot of these creators are putting into the content that they make, especially for YouTube. But what's also interesting is that you get a chance to have a lot of really great conversations with some of these creators when you're doing these tours of their space. So, like, what was the like drive? Because I mean, obviously you're traveling all over the place to do this. What was the drive to be able to create this style of content? And what do you personally take away from being able to create these office tours?
Thanks for the plug, man. I started it probably because YouTube's a weird, lonely, strange little business where you kind of talk to yourself in probably some dark room somewhere. And so I thought, I want to come up with a way to do more collabs in person, you know, hang out with other YouTubers. And then also, if I could not lose a bunch of money doing that, that'd be cool too. So the original one, which I started at the very beginning of 2020, perfect year to start a worldwide travel show or whatever.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. was as Bo Burnham said. And then the funniest thing happened. Was to do that. Was to go see other creators. I had this idea for a cool sponsor spot with, like, story blocks where I was gonna, like, make the whole travel sequence and stuff, and that was the idea. It was, like, hang out. And then with COVID, it got even more lonely and weird, where you're just, again, probably making more videos because you got nothing else to do, talking to yourself even more, edited. So then when things started to relax with that, I looked for the opportunity again just to get out there and hang out with other creators. And early on, it was mostly, like, photo video creators. And then so for the last, like, 2 seasons, if you will, the last season was all, like, tech creators that I've watched but haven't really, met in person. It'd be nice to kind of like meet them for real and see how they do things. And then this season's a bit more eclectic. It's kind of just like, again, people that I like, people that I watch, that I'd love to kind of like meet and see how they do things, and just a way to kind of hang out. And the content itself, to answer the second part of your question, I really like making, because I've always, for the most part, kept the camera reviews and stuff like that to be what I would call Gerald professional mode, which is
Okay.
like I put in some cheeky jokes and some silly things here or there, but for the most part, it's like, let's get the information across as efficiently as possible. Then you take that information, do whatever you want with it. But I stifle a bit of my sort of wacky personality to keep it professional, if you will. And so the studio tour is an opportunity for me to not have to be professional and just kind of be a bit of a goofball with other creators, and be able to show some of that, I guess, to my audience as well. As like, this is what I like. This is my sense of humor. This is fun for me. And also personal interest. I steal a lot of these ideas, and when I like, there's every tour has like one or two things where then I go home and I'm like, oh, I'm taking that for sure. I'm taking that, and I'm doing that here, So it's also, and I think other people might be able to do that too. They watch the videos and they go, love it. That's mine now, and then they put it in their own space. Like, I think that stuff's useful. Does that answer it? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly, that's the reason why I normally watch office tours. But what I like about your office tours is they do feel like you're just kind of like, it's a different Gerald for sure. It's kind of the Gerald that, like, when we go to NAB, it's not on camera Gerald. So it's like, it's definitely right in line with your personality, where you're just joking, having fun with, whether they've been friends or they just are creators that you've watched and you enjoyed their content, but they become friends. But it just feels like you're taking us behind the scenes. And what I like is that it's not even from their perspective, because like I've made office tours on my channel before, but that's coming from my perspective. But what I like is that you get a chance to add your perspective to it, which changes it. It's similar to like what we do here on the live show. Like, the purpose of this is to have, real conversations. We can let loose a little bit because it's not quite as, polished, and like, it's a live stream, so we don't know what's going to happen 9 times out of 10. But it is that ability to like just let loose a little bit, kind of engage with the audience in a new way, and really just hang out. Like, that's one of the reasons why I did it, and why I like having guests on the show, is because it allows me to just be able to hang out with my creator friends, talk to them about what they have going on, normally talk about what's going on in the news at that point in time. And we really can just kind of like unleash a little bit, really kind of just show our personality to the audience and not feel like we have to make like these perfectly polished videos.
To your point too, to kind of make fun of all of us, both the ones that I've toured, but also ourselves. We're the worst at making tours of our own spaces. Even when I make one of my own, I always kind of hate it. And it's because, so I feel like when I do a tour of somebody else's, I can kind of keep the momentum of what me as a viewer, and also I'm the one that edits these videos too. So I'm doing the tour, and in my head, I'm like, nobody wants to hear about that anymore. Trust me, stop talking about your dog or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And like move on to the next thing. And there's always going to be diehard fans that do want a 45-minute video where they just talk about their favorite desk and where they got it from. But it lets me kind of drive it forward as if I was the antsy viewer. That's like, okay, shut up, next thing, Because whenever I make a tour myself or they make a tour themselves, I watched them. It's like 30-minute videos. Either I'm making it, you're making it, someone's making it. And we just get bogged down into our own. Again, YouTube's weird. So I'm going to spend 25 minutes behind me telling you why I organized my drawer the way I did. And it's like, somebody needs to shut this guy off and move him on to the next topic. But if you do it yourself, nobody's there to do that for you. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely think, anytime, like, that's one of the reasons why, like, even Gerald, he's here, and he co-hosts basically almost all the episodes here on the Uncensored, and it's because of things like this. Like, sometimes it's just good to have that extra input, and you're right. Yeah. YouTube sometimes can be lonely, and like when you're doing it yourself, sometimes you like, I've definitely done this where I've overthought it and cut out too much. And then I go and I read the comments, and they're like, but you didn't talk about this, and you talked about this for like 2 seconds. And I was like, oh, I thought that was boring, but I guess people did care. And now it's like, well, I can't change it. So it just, it just leaves on into the ether. But, well, no, dude, I'm really happy with the content that you've been putting out. I want to just thank you for hopping on here, not being afraid to, back up your tweet or answer any questions that we had about it. Gerald is itching because he has been letting me know, and I've been seeing it. I'm not gonna like chat. I'm not a novice to it. I've been seeing that the chat is going crazy.
This has been the spiciest chat we've ever had.
Gerald,
I saw some things. I got my phone here. I was side-eyeing a couple things. Are we going to address any of these things? Are we going to address any of them or what?
So, Gerald,
this is like we're on two different planets right now.
I feel like the show is doing one thing and the chat is doing another thing, and it's like I'm legitimately sitting here like, all right, because we got two more guests that we're supposed to be bringing on. So my second guest, by the way, I know you're probably watching. Go ahead and get ready. But How do we even jump into this chat? I think what we should do. What'd you say?
I said you got any ones that stood out to you?
Well, so I was gonna say, Gerald, you've been knee deep in it. I'm gonna pull you up. Why don't you give us basic thoughts around the chat? You can just ask us your uncensored questions based off of what we got from the chat.
Okay, so let's quick round because there's about 1 billion questions. This is a dumpster fire, so we're not going to call out any names. We're just going to throw it out there. So, Brandon, Gerald, quick answer. Should you receive any monetary value when you do a review of a camera? Anything, like get the camera, be paid for a trip, get paid money. Should you receive any value?
I'll speak for myself first, and then Gerald, I'll let you go, and so you can maybe think about your answer. But I can say for me, I do not take any, I won't take free gear for a review, and I cannot be paid for a review. Now, what companies can do, and what has happened for me in the past, is a company will send me a product, and they'll be like, we would like you to review this product. And I will tell them, you can send me the product, but that does not guarantee that you'll get a review. And and this has happened. I get the product and
Actually, let me vouch for you. There's been stuff that people have sent that is sitting in this back room that if Brandon doesn't think that the product's worthy of putting before the audience, I'm like, can I get that? It's just sitting on a shelf back there.
It really is.
Never review.
I will not review a product if I don't feel like it, for a review. Now, that said, I have been paid to do product highlight videos, and I will be very clear in the email and say that that's what it is. For example, if you go on my channel, the Zayun Weeble 4, whatever that was, I say in that video that this is a product highlight video. So I'm just telling you what this product is. The video was sponsored by them. I was genuinely interested in the product, which is why I took the product highlight video and why it's sponsored. But it's not a review. I will save my opinions for it to be in a different video, so that way it's not conflicted. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's really important for me. That's how at least I do it. But I cannot be paid for a sponsored video. And I won't accept free gear with the guarantee that they're going to get a sponsored or they're going to get a review. Because the truth is if I get the product and I just hate it, or it's just not interesting, I don't want to just trash a product either, because I don't think that's, now if it's a bad product that I see a lot of people buying and I need to warn people, hey, be careful. I did that with a DJI or a Tilta accessory one time. I liked the product, I was interested in it, but I was this thing has a major build problem that you need to be aware of if you're going to buy it. That's the only time, but most of the time I just I'll just choose to bow out of it.
Gerald?
I'll try to keep
Should
brief,
you be paid for
again,
reviews?
I'm gonna drop a video later today that is 30 minutes of me talking about that. So I don't want to, but I'll do a quick one. No shade on anybody for how they run their business, how they earn their money. You got to keep the lights on. Maybe you got employees, whatever. Run your business how you want to run your business. I'm never going to give you crap for making money. My code of ethics is this. Early on, I kind of set aside a few brands that are not allowed to give me money. Canon, Fuji, whatever, right? The big kind of camera brands. Then I've got other sort of accessory brands that I'll do showcases for. That's what I call, probably what you're calling a highlight video. but I keep the lines clear, and usually I don't do reviews of this group and I don't do showcases of this group, so to speak. So uh, a lot of people think that there's more money in embargo videos than there is. Like, for example, if I get a new Sony camera and I make a video about it on launch day, I'm not getting paid by Sony. That camera's not a keeper. And I don't make videos at press events, so I'm receiving no financial anything from them. But you're getting early access, so you're getting views. You're getting no. I'm actually losing money, and I'll tell you why. Because new products don't have affiliate links to make any goddamn money. The videos, if you're like, this guy's trying to make affiliate money, I'll tell you what video they're making. 10 best pieces of crap you should use in your studio. That's an affiliate video. Because and I've done it before. Be like, see these clamps? Get those on Amazon, baby. And then you're on Amazon, you're buying clamps, you're buying toilet paper, whatever, I'm making money. If I'm making a video on the A7S4, this hypothetical camera we're talking about, it's not even out. I'm not making any affiliate revenue on that. Amazon doesn't even list that stuff for like 3 months later. And on B&H, it's like a pre-order. So yeah, there's no affiliate revenue. It's all bad. It's being overstated by the audience and they're misunderstanding it. So on the other side, a lot of the Chinese companies, they've got big wallets for doing showcases. So I figure I can throw a showcase in once in a while and tell people, look, I'm basically making an ad here, fam, for this gadget, and then I can take that money and I can afford to do some camera reviews from, the big five or whoever it is that I made. I'm not allowed to take money from these guys, but I also won't turn around and give you an unbiased review of something from one of these Chinese companies, because they've been, the last time I made one, I even said, like, just so you know, I've had an ongoing financial relationship with these guys, so don't trust me. I'm not worth anything. But on the camera side, I feel like I can say whatever I want because I've had the opposite of an ongoing financial relationship with them.
Yeah.
Anything beyond that, you're digging in. If you want to dig in, like, well, Gerald went to condo, and that's fun. So now when Sony releases a camera 6 months later, he's going to be nice to them because he went to condo 6 months ago. I mean, I can tell you, I won't watch the videos. Like, there's no guarantee. Yeah. But that one I have no control over. And you're never going to be able to control audience perception. So my advice is just have a code of ethics that you stand by and stick to it. And if it works for you, good. Again, who am I to tell you how to run your business? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, 80, maybe more, maybe like 90% of this really doesn't matter. There's like one segment of the audience, which is somebody who actually has a limited budget, that is looking at that video to see if that camera can satisfy the project they need to do. Maybe they're a wedding filmmaker, maybe they're whatever. And they actually need to know that the information they're getting is accurate, because the money they're going to spend is going to come out of their revenue, and it's important. Everybody else is window shopping, or, how many comments ago, like, I wasn't going to buy the Burano. Of course you weren't. Neither of us were ever going to buy the Burano. It's more of a theory about tech. It's like a magazine of like what's new in the latest McLaren. I'm not going to buy a McLaren, so that's fine if you want to tell me about it, but it's not going to change anything. But there is a small segment of the audience that we have to be straightforward with and tell them, because it does affect things. Everybody else, if they comment like, all these YouTubers are full of crap or whatever, it's like, none of this matters, man. It doesn't matter, But have a code of ethics, stick to it, and hopefully that gets rid of all that noise. And then for the 10% of people that are actually like, please give me the answers, my money depends on it, hopefully your code of ethics will guide you to serving that particular portion well. And then the rest of the noise on either extreme, you did your best. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I absolutely agree with like everything you just said, and that actually helps me. I like the way you break it down by like, these groups can do this thing, these groups can't do this thing. I think that's actually really, really important. I'm going to probably infiltrate that in some way. I'm going to steal that. That's going to be the thing I steal from you, and I'm going to apply.
You got to take some every time.
Take some. Dude, every time I have a guest on, it takes some.
Last kind of spicy question. It seems as if in the chat there are people that feel like if you're not using this on set or like in a work location, you probably shouldn't review it. So question, do you feel like it is possible for YouTubers to contribute good stuff about the cameras, even if they're not using it, like on a Hollywood set or in commercial work or in real estate or in weddings. Like, should YouTubers be talking about a piece of gear if they're not using it in a work application like it was intended to?
I think it really depends on the product. I think that if I were to make a video on an Arri Alexa of like, there'd be a lot of leaps there. But I think that it is ignorant or perhaps old-minded to look at something like what do we got? An FX3, whatever, something that's more blurry, and say, what do YouTubers know about it? That's who's making the most videos. That's who's using these. That's who's buying these cameras and using these cameras the most, is content creators. Whether we like it or not, I should say, I mean, obviously I like it. I'm making a living on it. But whether other people like it or not isn't really up for debate. The fact is, what do they say? Like the most or second most watched like platform on the TV now is YouTube. All those bozos on YouTube are all using mirrorless cameras or something like that, right? So if you're somebody whose audience, in my case, my audience is probably a lot of content creators, right? So I'm serving that. I'd say the only thing that we should do is maybe just be clear about where we're coming from. And my advice has always been to the viewer is treat it like your favorite movie reviewer. You don't just read every movie review and then somehow react to every single one. You find a critic that seems to like all the same stuff that you like. And then when they tell you, oh, there's a new movie coming out and it's great, you'd be like, well, the last 10 movies this critic said I liked, so I'll go watch that one. You don't get upset about the critic who's never liked the same things as you, doesn't like your new movie that you like. It just doesn't make any sense. So if I make a video on the Burano like I did, I think I spent way too much time in that video being like, just so you know, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I don't use this on set. I don't side buttons to me. Why? I'd rather hold it in my hand, and I said all these things. So I'm just going to do my best to talk about the things that I feel like I can provide information on, and you can ignore every other part that you think to yourself, what does this guy know? And that's fair. That's perfectly fair. As long as we don't lie about what we are or who we are, then it's just the audience is being, capricious or whatever. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that's great. I mean, I don't think I have anything really else to add. I think you and I kind of come from different perspectives typically when we do reviews, because I feel like I'm the other side of that question, where like I do like for example, if I'm reviewing a Red or whatever, I am taking it on set. But I can also tell you that like sometimes you go into more detail because you're focused on the camera than I normally will even do as someone who's like using it on set. Like I'll never forget, I was on my way to like shoot a job, and I thought we were using FX6s. And like sometimes I show up to cam op and I don't, it's not my camera. I'm just showing up, we're setting up the camera, and then we're going. And I think we're using FX6s. I get a text message on the way there that no, actually we're using FX9s. And I'm like, how different is that? And
Gerald
I immediately
video.
I immediately go to YouTube and I looked up your video because I knew you were going to be the most thorough, like about the camera and like settings and changes, and like I knew you had also used the FX6. I was like, hopefully he's like, had some time to, maybe he'll talk about the differences between the two. And it just gave me like a quick little refresher on my way to go do that job. Now, in your video, you weren't like on set or anything using the camera, but I think it just depends on like where you're coming from with that review. Like, for example, I know you don't do anything with like Red typically, but like I did a video for the Komodo X, and we took it out on set. We took it on a bunch of different jobs and we used it, and we talked about it from how this is used like on set. I still would have loved somebody who could have like went through and really pulled out the dynamic range and really tested it. Because obviously, these camera companies, they're always going to tell you the marketing, and they're going to tell you that it's going to get more dynamic range, but it's like, how much of that's really usable? So getting a third person to like test those things is always super helpful. So I personally think that no, you don't have to be on set to be able to review these cameras, even if the camera is intended to be used on set or on a wedding or whatever. It just all comes from like, what is the purpose of this review? How is this review being like encapsulated? And I think good creators do a good job of doing that. Like Justin Porter, who I know is in the chat, He's a good friend of mine. He always talks about camera gear from the scope of a wedding filmmaker because that's what he does. So, like, I'm not going to watch one of his videos and think, well, how would this work on a film set? Because he doesn't know. That's not what he does. Like, he does wedding films, so he talks about it from the scope of wedding films. So I just think, like, what you were saying earlier about being able to find your favorite reviewer, that's that calibration I always talk about. Like, if you can calibrate yourself to a creator, then you'll know ahead of time sort of like what this creator brings to the table. And it's normally just, I mean, I hate to throw shade at anybody in the chat, but like, it's normally just like chatty, whiny, like people in the who are watching who are like, well, you're not doing this thing. And it's like, I never did that thing. Why are you mad at me? Like if somebody got mad at me, it was like, yeah, but you didn't talk about how that camera works in a wedding. And I'm like, 'cause I don't shoot weddings. Like, that's not my fault, you know? So,
but there'll be a wedding video out there, so go find it. There's always going to be, and you can, if you got 3 different needs, you can find 3 different perspectives. That's why people talk about competition or saturated and stuff like that. And it's like, well, for the viewer, it's actually pros because you get more perspectives, so you can satisfy all your perspectives. And to your credit, you talked about being biased towards red as like a con, but I think that also gives you, so say there was a new red camera, you can also make a video from the perspective like, look, I've been using red for X years, or I've had the last 3 versions of this, so I know every little thing that's different. Or I know where if I got whatever the next red camera, well, I guess there might not be another red camera, but however that's going to work. But if I got the next red camera and you put it on my desk here, I wouldn't know exactly what to start talking about because I wouldn't know what is already known and what is new because it's all new to me. But you can provide the context of like, as all of us red shooters know, you know, X and Y, but now there's this new factor. And so even a bias can be manipulated to be useful, but it all comes down to the viewer. Is it useful to that viewer? And if it's not, you know what the best thing is? Close the damn tab and move on with your life. Like it doesn't, you know, there was no consequence, which is why it comes back to, unless you're being deceptive and you're screwing over that 10% of people that are actually trying to buy it, it's all just noise. And I think that, I that's fine. Shout out to Justin Porter.
I don't want to take up more of your time. You stayed way longer than we initially talked about, and I appreciate it. If you are part of that 2% of the audience who maybe is watching this and doesn't know who Gerald is, I think it's like 1%. What did he say? Oh my gosh, Porter. I'm trying to let Gerald go. You can't be doing this. Thank you so much, Gerald, for hopping on. This has been, I think, super informative. But I just want to say thank you to anybody who doesn't know who Gerald is. Definitely go follow him. Go watch his channel. If you do need that insight on a camera and you want to get really, really technical on how a specific camera works, and even lights as well. Like I personally have watched a lot of your stuff, especially on aperture lights, because I have spent way too much money with them. But you've helped me out with a lot of that stuff too. So if anybody is interested, definitely go check out his channel. You absolutely should. And I like your code of ethics, so I trust you. You're somebody I definitely wouldn't mind putting on.
Oh, thanks. It means a lot to me, man. It's always fun chatting with you, hanging out with you. I like your show you got going on here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on, bro. Peace. All right, so chat, y'all went nuts. Y'all were going nuts, and we were definitely trying to keep up. I did tell y'all that we had another guest, and this is a guest who I'm really excited to bring on, because if you don't know who he is, he has actually been making camera-related content in our space for just about as long as I have. And he's kind of like come into the space and left the space, but he has something unique up his sleeve. So I'm really excited to bring him on because, you know, we've been talking about the S9 and this trip and what it was all about. But Gerald, I wanted to bring on somebody who was actually there. Now, our shows, we're going over on time, and I think that's just going to be what it's going to be at this point. But I wanted to bring on somebody who was actually at the trip, who actually went to Tokyo, and somebody who could speak on the state of this camera, someone who has used this camera, and someone who actually was there. and who can tell us what it was like to be in Tokyo, to be a creator there. Because I know Gerald wasn't there. I wasn't there. So we're speaking from the perspective of creators who weren't there, but like, let's talk to somebody who was actually there. So I want to bring up my good friend, David Altizer. What's up, bro?
Hello, fam. What is up? I brought my banana, by the way.
Sponsored by Lumix.
Oh, I'm digging the energy already. All right, so our show has gone way over on time. We're gonna try to cut this. We're gonna keep this brief. You were there. You were in the room. You have seen it. You have the camera.
Wow.
That blue is actually pretty nice.
Looks like painter's tape.
It looks like painter's tape.
Is there painter tape on it?
No.
So this is a D-brand skin. I don't know if it's actually D-brand, but I don't know if anybody talked about that. But I'm here to be honest. I have nothing to lose. I'm not in this game anymore, and I was still invited. But I do have positive things to say about this. I have negative things to say about this. This video is not sponsored. So
hold on.
Yeah.
Let me give the people a little bit of context here, because you do have something interesting. So you went last year to Japan, and Lumix flew you out, and that's when they released that guy, and that was great. I think no one had any problems with all of that going down. This year, it felt like it was weird because of the camera that came out. Now, you don't actually make camera-related content anymore, but yet they still flew you out there.
I do whenever I feel like it. I'm like, I can't escape this. I am just so passionate about certain things, and every once in a while I'll make a video, go on a rant, and then I'll go back to my business doing thumbnails, which is what I've been doing the last year now. But yeah, I still love the space. I don't think I'm going to go anywhere in the long run, but I'm also not taking this seriously like a job. I'm just kind of having fun talking about things that I like. So, or, you know,
Bro, you gotta stop holding that camera up. The focus is driving me crazy.
Sorry.
Put the camera down for a minute. Just put the camera down for a minute, because the focus jumping back and forth, my DP brain is going crazy.
He makes thumbnails.
Is that what you're trying to do? You're trying to find a thumbnail?
Yeah. I'm just trying to.
No, so I gotta ask you. You went to Japan. What was the senses when this camera was announced?
Well, first off, we all kind of went into it knowing kind of what this was because of the leaks. So I think a lot of us, when we were there, and by the way, there are people in the chat, so I want to acknowledge Terry Warfield was there, Connor McCaskill was there, Cam Mackey was there, Kofi was there. They're all in the chat here, so hi guys. And I also want to just say up front that I think all of us have been very attuned to what's happening in culture with the disclosures, with these trips. And even when we were there, this was a discussion that we were all having on the streets of Japan. It's like, you know, the whole Insta360 debacle that recently happened has caused a lot of us to be really aware of it. And I don't know about you, but I watched almost all of the videos, and it seemed like people were trying to disclose at the intro of every video, hey, I was flown here, you know, to Japan. Here's my thoughts. And I do feel like generally people, and maybe I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt because these are my friends and I was also there, but I also just want everybody to remove yourself from the situation and play a hypothetical game with me. Okay, so it's like you're talking about the Corvette with like a car bro, and he's like, I'm never getting the new Corvette. It's like, yeah, but it looks like a Ferrari. It's like, yeah, but it's still a Corvette. It's a Chevy. It's like, so it's trash. And I would never get that. And it's like, well, what if somebody gave it to you for free? It's like, well, yeah, I'll take it. So that's kind of the that's kind of the sentiment that I think people need to remember is like, we're camera reviewers. This is a new camera. It's an interesting camera. This trip was provided for free. There are discussions that we should be having about this. Should we even accept these trips? But if we don't accept it, then we don't get the new cameras in the first place to cover it. I think Gerald already covered that whole conversation really well. And I honestly think he did a very good job of not necessarily attacking anybody and just kind of raising a flag for all of us. I think it's important because this is kind of a new thing in our industry. It wasn't like this when we started, Brandon, 6 years ago, was it?
No.
anyways, the back to your original question. I think overall, once we started seeing some of the things like, especially when they had the little keynote presentation that they did their own little Apple keynote presentation. When the image of this lens popped up on the screen, it was like, and it's a 26 millimeter f8 manual focus lens. We were all like, wait, what? Did they say manual focus? And it's like, wait, is it f8 constant? F8? And I was like, what the heck? And so that was a big kind of like shock to the group. And I think the lens, in my opinion, is one of the funniest things about this whole thing. And then it's like, wait, electronic shutter? No. And then when I got the camera, they didn't mention this on stage, but like once we got them in hand, I pulled the hot shoe cover off and I was like, wait, I don't see any connections here. Is there, wait a minute, what? This isn't a real hot shoe? You can't put a flash on here? This is like, this screams like tiny little flash, for like a Leica type shooting,
Right.
Thing. And yeah, but then it's like, I just think overall everybody was conflicted on what they thought about this camera. And I think it's partially because of who they invited. They invited a lot of pro video people and people who take this stuff really seriously, people who this S5 II is made for ultimately. And because most of the people there, half of them might be actual Lumix ambassadors, and then the other half are people that at least are Lumix friendly, own a Lumix or were given one and they use it. So all of us have had time with the S5 II. And so when we have this, it's like, well, this does have a lot of the cool features that this has, like amazing stabilization. It's a great sensor, but man, there's just so many limitations with it. Like I don't understand it. And then my consensus after watching everybody's videos was like, actually, this is like a fun camera and everybody was using it to take pictures and stuff. But I think because everybody's just like, oh, it's just a fun camera. If you already have 7 cameras, it's a good camera to have. And I think that's actually not the market. The market isn't for people who need a third camera. That's a luxury. That's a luxurious position. I think the disconnect is who they invited to the trip. That was our perspective, is like, I would never own this. I would never really use this for work, but it's a lot of fun. And it's that goes back to that initial analogy. It's like, yeah, the Corvette is trash compared to like actual sports cars. It's like, yeah, but if they gave it to you for free, would you take it? It's like, well, yeah, of course. So,
but do you think that,
by the way, we're like, all of these are loaners, by the way. I want to make that clear. Nobody is given the camera. We are not allowed to sell it. If we do, we'll get in big trouble because there's a serial number down here that is this is a reviewer unit. And so if we don't like it, I think the what you do, Brandon, which I heard you say earlier in the show, is like, if you don't like it, just send it back. And I think a lot of creators who have done reviews on it should consider that. If it's not a camera that you actually feel like you should own or use, or something you wouldn't buy yourself, I would argue that maybe you should send it back. That way you can just have that kind of peace of mind of like, yeah, this isn't a camera for me. I'm not just going to accept it as a free thing. Although I don't want to sound like I'm holier than thou either, and that like I'm thinking about doing that myself, and then considering buying it with my own money at some point. And again, I'm not saying everybody else should do this. I've just been thinking a lot about this whole debacle and realizing I think the best solution for all of us is to consider, if this was my own money, what is the tool that I would purchase? And I've been kind of living for years with like, these are all the cameras that I got for free, so I'm just going to make all these work for my job. And it's the benefit of the job. By the way, this job is really hard. I'm not trying to like make myself sound like a victim, but it is exhausting to be a full-time YouTuber and stuff. And so it's a nice perk to have access to great gear, obviously. But I remember when I met Caleb Pike like years ago for the first time, he said, yeah, I really try hard to not accept cameras from the manufacturers and not go on the trips. And this was in 2016 or 17 when I met him. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like, wow, the integrity on that guy is insane. And now that like time has passed, I'm like, it's a weird conversation, because if you want to be in the game, you kind of got to play the game a little bit, but still remain honest and just be so good that the companies can't ignore you. I think that's what MKBHD has done. He's just so good at what he does and he's so big that the companies have to send it to him, even if he could shut down the whole business if it's a bad product.
Well, so hold on one
really
second,
there.
because I think
I'm going all
what
over
you
the
said
place,
there
sorry.
is actually super important. I think as creators, it is our job to be honest and to give our honest feedback. And when you are given the product for free or whatever, it can be easy to like review the product without thinking of the value. Because I'll be fully transparent. Like if something's sent to me, like 9 times out of 10, like when you get a product early, they don't even tell you what the product's gonna cost. Like they don't tell you that number when you're reviewing it, because I don't think they necessarily want that to influence how you review the camera. But I do think that it's the cost of these pieces of gear that also are swaying like non-YouTubers to have their opinions, because somebody is looking at that camera and they're thinking about it from the perspective of, that's a $1,500 camera. And there's a lot of stuff that I can buy for $1,500, and that's maybe not the thing I should spend my money on. But if it's the thing that you're sharing with me, then you might think it is. And I also think that there is something to like the embargo release date that happens, which again, we're all subject to, where it's like, it's not just Dave, or it's not just Gerald, or it's not just Kofi or Terry, or I'm just calling all y'all out because you're in the chat. But it's the fact that everybody's video hits at once, and it feels like a tidal wave of a bunch of your favorite creators talking about a piece of gear, which then makes you feel like, even though the creators in a vacuum are probably not trying to convince you to buy this piece of gear, but it can feel like that when you see 30 videos about the same exact product. Like I, full transparency, don't really keep up with like Apple news like super close, even though I use a lot of their products. But I know when the embargo drops on an iPad, because everybody's video is going to come out, and I know that will sort of start to influence, do I think I should upgrade this year? Should I not? I'll watch a few videos. And even though individually, those creators probably could care less if I buy an iPad or not. Apple's definitely not paying them. And they're not even getting affiliate dollars unless like they're going through a third party like store. Like the thing is like, as a viewer, it can feel that way. And I think that gets echoed through the audience sometimes. And as creators, like, I think that's the one area where we misstep, because we look at the product in a vacuum. We look at our video in a vacuum. And then when we release, it's not in that vacuum anymore. It's in the space of, hey, this is a $1,500 camera, but literally right now, Blackmagic just dropped the price on the Pocket, or not, it's not a Pocket, it's a Blackmagic cinema camera, full frame, to $1,500, right? Like that lives in that same price bracket right now. The Sony A7C, the first one, is currently on sale for $1,500. So it's in that same price bracket. So like when you're reviewing these cameras, I think that's where a little bit of the disconnect can be. But you mentioned that you felt that like this camera sort of felt off in the span of like the creators that were there and who made videos about it. Do you think the creator and what the creator stands for matters with the type of gear they choose to review? Like, do you think like someone like, like for example, Justin Porter, who does wedding films, who I know has been in the chat, like he's probably not going to use this camera in a wedding or for a wedding, because I mean it's got a 15-minute recording limit. That's not going to help you, right? So it's like, if he's not going to use this camera in his environment, do you think he should just not make a video, or do you think there's still value in having creators make videos about cameras, but they don't actually work or live in that space for that camera?
Yeah, to be fair on the record limit, I'm sure Porter remembers this. We all shot weddings on 5D Mark IIs in 2009 with a 12-minute cutoff. And the way you solve that problem is you have 3 of them and you stagger the recording, and you have a man on each camera, and you look at each other and you give the signal, and then you go start, stop, and then you just fix it with a multicam. That was what we did when we were young. I was 17 when I started shooting weddings on the 5D Mark II. And so if you look at, if you told me about this camera that would be this small, that would have the power of this in 2009, I would have been like mind blown, right? So I think, obviously, again, I'm not trying to defend the decisions here. I just think it's an interesting kind of thought experiment to be reminded of how blessed and lucky we are to live in this world. But yes, I am good friends with Tyler Stallman, and I was texting him yesterday about kind of a little bit of this backlash, and he was like, "What do you mean? I haven't seen any backlash." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's a great example of like his audience is more of the like iPhone, Apple kind of audience." And to them, it's like, oh, this is interesting. It's a small full frame camera. Like it's actually pretty much this, it's the same width as my iPhone. This is an iPhone 15 Pro. It's obviously thicker, but like to that audience of creators who are used to shooting on their phones or maybe a little point and shoot ZV-1 or something, this is a very valuable and interesting product. And he told me, he's like, I have not seen backlash in my comments at all. And I don't want to like dox anybody or share how I know this knowledge, but this was, as far as I'm aware, not the camera that we were supposed to see in Japan. So this, by saying
Wait,
this,
hold
I
on,
might not
hold on.
You heard it
Wait,
here
I don't-
first.
Wait a minute. So wait,
No,
you're
no, no.
saying you guys flew all the way to Japan and this was not the camera?
Allegedly.
Okay, allegedly. Allegedly.
Despite what anybody says, I think let's just use our intellect here for a minute, everybody. Look at the people that were invited. Who are they? Who are their target demographics? Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Okay, now think about what kind of camera this is, who this is serving. Look at all the marketing that Panasonic made on this camera. Okay, does that match the people that were invited? That's all I'm going to say. And I'll let you guys figure out, because like if they matched what they feel like, because these marketing teams spend a lot of money, a lot of time figuring out how to market this thing. Look at the commercial for the product. I don't see any filmmakers in that commercial. I see young, college-aged, Gen Z, TikTok, YouTube influencer types who also love the Fujifilm craze going on with the X100. That's who I see, and that's the direction it seems that Lumix is going with this product. Now compare that to all the people who are invited. Okay, now compare that to the people who are invited and their audiences. Okay, so if the people who are invited are more filmmaker leaning, then their entire audience is also going to be filmmaker leaning, which is why there's a disconnect, because it's like, well, this isn't for me. Well, yeah, exactly. It's not for you. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
no, and I think that's a very important point, that like just because a new camera comes out and your favorite creator who you align with is talking about it doesn't necessarily mean that it's for you too. But that's that hard calibration thing that I think we currently struggle with.
Yeah. So can we? I fixed the camera though, by the way, for me. Look, I got this little viewfinder on Amazon. It's a 35 millimeter equivalent. You just stick this on here, boom, and then this lens is trash. I'm gonna take it off. I got this tiny little.
What?
I got this little body cap lens that doesn't require any focus at all, and it's a little disposable camera lens that's remounted onto a Leica L mount. And when the flip screen is closed like this, I can still take pictures. So I just am in auto mode, and I just look through here, and I just go boom like that. And I'm taking.
So the way you
pictures,
fix
and it's a
the
fun
camera,
little. This is like a disposable full frame
it
camera.
turned into a whole new camera.
I've got these like little LUTs here, that simulate film. So it's like a true film camera. And then, oh my gosh, it doesn't have a flash. Oh, okay. Well, guess what? You can buy one of these. It's a constant light that is really small, and you can stick in your pocket, or you can gaff tape it to your camera, and you can take a quick picture, which I did yesterday at my kid's baseball game. I took a picture like this, and then I turned it off when I was done, and boom, now I got a light. So there's always ways to work around these things, and to me, as a YouTube creator in this space, that's our job, is to give you guys solutions to all the problems that these people come up with in the little niches and in the little bubbles that we're in. And that was what I loved about 2017 when I started. Remember when like Canon was all the craze because Casey Neistat was using Canon and Peter McKinnon and they just kept doing 1080p only and 30-minute record limits and micro HDMI ports. And then Sony came out and like, oh, they've got 4K, but their autofocus and color science is trash. And then it's like, where's Nikon? Nikon is like a potato camera. And then, so all these problems with the cameras made our community more exciting and more fun because we would kind of like find little niche cameras or fix problems to like the M50. I made a bunch of videos on the Kinotika channel. And I was always finding, yeah, you remember, making like little tweaks and things. Was that a good camera to the audience here? No, absolutely not. That was a very cheap, budget-friendly, kind of bad camera, plasticky camera, but it actually had a cool image and it had a really fun, it was a fun camera to use. And it was wildly popular. I believe it was like one of the #1 sellers for Canon for a long time. And I think still to this day, people are still consuming M50 content. And I think it's important to acknowledge Lumix for trying something. Like, there's a lot of problems with this, but that was intentional. They somewhere they decided.
Wait, no, okay, don't say that. Don't say that the problem.
They had to decide. There's a lot of problems with this camera, I think, for me, but like it was intentional for them to say, we have to remove the hot shoe for some reason. We have to remove the electronic shutter for some reason. And they're just trying something and it might fail. This might not sell well. You know, we'll see. I kind of have to hand it to them for like giving it the old try. You know, it's like they obviously made these decisions for some reason. It must be for cost and profit margin is my guess. And because the S5 II is such a wonderful bargain for what it does, by the way, I found one on eBay for $1,300. Buy it now. I don't know if it's still there. So for $200 less than this camera, you can buy a used S5 II on eBay right now, which has none of the problems that people are complaining about here. But again, I go back to look at the people who were invited to this trip and compare it to who Lumix is marketing this towards and who they think this audience is for. Do those things align? No. That's why there's backlash, because spoiler alert, this camera wasn't made for you guys.
Well, and that's, I think, like for me, I look at somebody like Cam Mackey and I feel like I really liked his coverage on the camera. Because I felt like, you know, he was very honest. Like I think he called it, quote, no, it wasn't the camera. Sorry, it was the lens. In his reel, he called it a shitty plastic lens, but he said that he still liked it, which I thought was like, I was like, okay, I can vibe with that. But I do appreciate you. I do appreciate you hopping on and giving us your insight as somebody who was actually at the event. And I want to use this as a transition because you mentioned something about that camera, the S5 II, that you found one on eBay for $1,300. And we all know that the Blackmagic just came out with the new, sorry, it's not new. It is the full frame right now is on sale for $1,000 off. So it's coming in at just over $1,500. And we obviously know that this new S9 is currently out for also $1,500. And so I think this price point of sitting around sub $2,000, $1,500, I feel like this is like where the world sort of start to clash when it comes to cameras, because you've got cinema cameras in that lineup, you've got point and shoot cameras in that lineup, you've got mirrorless cameras in that lineup. So it gets real murky real fast, where it's like, it's really not about the price. It's really about the camera and what is the camera good for you. And so, Dave, I want to thank you for hopping on here, but I do want to bring up our next guest, who is sort of our resident Blackmagic. He's our Blackmagic specialist. He's our Blackmagic specialist. He is amazing at what he does. And every time he comes on, he comes in with the inside scoop, especially for Blackmagic, or he's helping me make some sense out of what's going on with Blackmagic, because it doesn't typically make a whole lot of sense to me. But I want to bring up our good friend, Michael Tobin. So let's see if we can get him up on here. Bro, what's up?
Hey.
Before you
Man,
guys go
this has
in,
been a spicy
I'm
live
glad
stream.
I'm glad that you acknowledged it. So we were spicy with Gerald,
Yeah.
and it calmed down for like a hot second,
Yeah.
and then it went in one more time. And so, yeah, what are your thoughts on the comments, Michael?
Oh, it's been fun being a viewer of this. And it's also fun because I have zero skin in the game at all. I've been in camera heaven the past couple weeks. So I just came back from Reno a couple days ago. I've been playing with Arri 35. So when I come back and see all this like budget camera stuff, I'm like, I don't know what's happening. But this new camera looks interesting. So I barely know anything about it besides what I've been learning in this live stream. And it's funny. I mean, everything that like Gerald talked about and David, like I very much align with a lot of the creator sense, and like it's a balancing act that we've all experienced. I also saw Cam mention something that I don't think gets talked about a lot a little while ago in the chat, which was like he expects his audience to also be adults. And I think if a creator is, you check that box saying, hey, this is paid video, you kind of make sure that line is clear between, hey, this is my opinion, or I was paid or not paid, whatever you're doing your due diligence as a creator. You also should expect that like our audiences aren't 12-year-olds. Like there has to be some amount of responsibility taken for the people watching to understand, because I used to be very bad at this. I would watch every video, be like, I need that new drone. I only fly a drone maybe 3 times a year, but every time a new drone came out, I was like, I need it, I want it. And eventually I made a video of like, hey guys, we don't need like that drone, like that marketing highlight video, or that video that, Peter McKinnon showing off the cool mountains in Canada. It's like, my backyard in Ohio is not going to look like that. So like, let's all just chill. And so it's been very interesting, but man, people are heated. But here I am, Blackmagic guy who Blackmagic doesn't pay nobody. I picked the wrong brands from a monetary perspective, but everyone should know that when I say I like Blackmagic, man, I make nothing directly from them in any way.
No, I think that's totally fine. I did not. Like, I'm gonna have to go back and read through the chat myself because I'm looking over at Gerald the whole show,
spicy.
and he's just laughing and trying not to be picked up by the microphone. But man, but I did want to bring you on because I feel like one of the other big areas, and I just mentioned it, was the fact that this camera is sitting at $1,500, and I think $1,500 is like a very weird price tag. Like, and it's not weird for this camera, even though I think my personal opinions on this camera is that it's overpriced a little bit. I think it probably should have been like sub $1,000, but whatever. I think that with it sitting at $1,500, what makes a lot of people feel iffy about it is the fact that you have a Blackmagic camera that's currently a full frame, 6K, shoots raw, cinema camera. Is currently $1,500. You have the Sony A7C Mark I, currently $1,500. And then you have so many amazing $2,000 to $2,500 cameras that you could buy used right now, probably around that $1,500 price tag, which, like Dave mentioned, he found that S5 II currently for $1,300 on eBay. I think there's just one. So if you're shopping, maybe want to go pick that up. But I think that specifically when it comes to the Blackmagic thing and like where cameras are currently sitting, I think the Blackmagic one is really interesting, and that's why I wanted to have you on, because that camera being priced at $1,500, I don't think speaks to like necessarily the value of that camera or like what they thought the cost of that camera should be. I think that actually has a lot to do, personally, I feel it has a lot to do with the fact that like I don't think the camera was moving. And I think the camera was just sitting on the shelf. And then releasing the Pixis didn't help. And so, like, because it's basically, I mean, as far as I can tell, it's basically the same camera. It's just the Pixis is a better body, minus the screen. But, like, I feel like we're sitting in a place where Blackmagic is willing to show their cards a little bit and say, hey, this camera's not moving, so let's drop the price on it to get rid of it. where there's probably a lot of cameras that we think are moving because a lot of YouTube videos came out about it that are probably sitting. But I don't know. As a Blackmagic shooter and someone who lives in the Blackmagic news cycle, what are your thoughts on this camera dropping to $1,500? And do you think it speaks to a bigger problem with cameras that are just sitting right now?
I very much agree with your theory. I'll state, obviously no one's there is going to tell me like, yeah, this camera's not selling. But it absolutely makes sense from a timing perspective. The Pixis is supposed to, like, pre-orders have already been coming in. It starts shipping next month. I don't know exactly when, but I believe it said June time. And so it kind of just makes perfect sense, kind of clear out the warehouses a bit. And it's a very interesting camera. Blackmagic for the past couple of years, they've just been making a lot of lateral moves, at least in the pocket line. Like every time they've released a new camera, it's just like, okay, cool. Like, you know, everyone's like, you know, great price point, get good features, especially compared to what's out there. But it's been a lot of lateral moves. And I don't necessarily have an issue with the Pixis and the full frame being essentially the same camera, because it is, like you said, just rehoused, a couple different ports and minor tweaks here and there. But it very much is a camera that doesn't really make sense. And at the 2500, yes, you get full frame, but the 6K Pro, which my camera you're seeing right now, you know, it's got internal NDs and a couple other ports, and the media types are different. And so it kind of makes sense. And I know a couple regions have already sold out. I'll be interested to see how long the US market holds. I made a video this morning because they came out with the Blackmagic camera app update, and I was checking B&H and Amazon, and they've all still got it on sale for $1,500 in stock. But like you said, it's $1,500 is a very interesting price point, because it's just out of that, like, it's not like, you know, just, oh, I'm gonna spend $1,500, and that's not a significant amount of money for most people. So that's still like, I've got to put some thought into this purchase. But there are clearly cameras that are excellent value, and then there are cameras seemingly, like I said, I don't know, like the S9, that potentially are just kind of trying to bat a little above their value, trying to go for, as Gerald said, some Fuji money or whatever.
Well, we know there was a lot of Fuji money. I mean, the X106 became the best-selling camera of the year in like a week.
Was it?
Like, it wasn't even close. And I don't know if they're counting just pure units or actual, like, what the actual like dollar amount is. So I can't speak to that, because it is a sub $2,000 camera, but it is also at that same price point. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's around that. It's not $1,500. I think it's like maybe $1,399 or something like that. But it's around that same price tier. And so I find that really interesting. One of the things that for me I think would be interesting from a Blackmagic shooter is, like, Blackmagic always has seemed to be like the company that went after the best value. Like, that was it. Like, best value, best value, best value. They tried to slam way too much into a camera for a really inexpensive price point. Do you ever feel like the price of a camera shouldn't matter to how we judge the camera? Or do you think that does play a direct role?
I think it definitely depends on the market that it's going after. Well, I don't know. I guess at every level, things are going to change of what matters within the camera. And you're right that Blackmagic has been a company that historically, you know, I remember when the 12K not first came out, but maybe a year after it came out, they randomly cut the price in half. And it just randomly went from like 10,000 to 5,000. And they're just like, we found a way to make it cheaper. And I joked with Grant Petty, the CEO at NAB this year. And I was like, I laughed when you apologized for having to raise the price of the 12K, which has like every feature that most camera nerds could want in a camera. And it's still like half the cost of the closest, you know, Red or Ari or Sony Burano, whatever. And he was just like, you know, if we ever find a way to make the process cheaper or whatever, like we pass the savings on to the consumer. And so like, even as someone who has like, inside connections to it, like my trust in that brand, as frustrated as like, I'm like, make it more expensive if you can make like, certain changes here and there. But I do think that, the price obviously dictates the value. I mean, most people aren't walking around with indispensable amounts of money. And I like what David said actually at one point. I've been guilty of this sometimes in the past, where as reviewers, for me, it was like gimbals, where I kind of stopped doing gimbal reviews because I realized I had like 6 sitting on my shelf, and I was no longer a person who like just was like, okay, what would I spend my hard earned money on? And like, I just have a bunch of these. So when a new one comes out, it's just like, wow, this is cool, or this is that. Like it does become a lot easier to kind of unfairly judge or promote a camera when you have 3 other backups that you could pick up. And so I do understand both the audience perspective at like, hey, if I was 20-year-old me, I saved up $1,500. I want to get the most value out of that $1,500 or whatever price point it is, and I need to buy something that's going to last me for X number of years. Like, you absolutely should be able to have trust in both the brand and the people promoting it, that they're going to get their value out of it.
Yeah, I think that, and I think hearing you say that, I think it is like. I think it was Dave, or I think David was who said it, but like that, like the S9 is probably nobody's like first camera, like it is that bonus camera. And I think to Gerald's point, if it's like the Fuji X106, most people that's no one's first camera. Well, I'm not gonna say no one's, but it's probably not most people's first camera. It's probably like that bonus camera, that secondary tier camera that they just have with them, as a, oh, this is in my pocket, I can pull it out, get some really cool shots, and then throw it back in. So, all right,
well,
last question.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I in the comments, I believe it was Kofi at one point, a little bit ago, was like, no other camera in a long time has made me want to, or maybe it was Terry, wake up and go on a photo walk or whatever. And like, I personally, like, I'm someone who gives everyone like benefit of the doubt, so I don't read that as like, oh, he's just paid and like he's just saying that or whatever. Like, I believe him, but just like you said, he's got a couple other cameras strapped to him, so it's just about what's your perspective on it. As long as, and I haven't had time, like I said, I just got back from a trip, so I haven't watched anyone's videos. If everyone's coming from that perspective of like, it is what it is, and if it's best suited for being that secondary camera, then great. As I doubt any of them are like, this is the only camera you will ever need in your lifetime. I don't know.
Yeah. No, and I can say, I mean, I've watched just about everybody's video in preparation for this episode, which I'll be honest, I don't like, especially for a camera like this, I wouldn't watch anybody's video because I just don't care about this camera. Sure. But I thought the world around this camera was actually more interesting, kind of to Gerald's same tweet. Like, the world around this camera was actually more interesting to me than the camera itself. But it was a catalyst. It was a catalyst to a conversation that, honestly, I'm really glad we were able to have. I appreciated you being in the chat. I appreciate you coming on here and talking about, the state of Blackmagic and this price point. When things like this happen, especially in our space, I like to use this show as a place to be like, hey, let's get some different people on and let's allow them to give their different insights. And you've always been great in, coming on the show and giving insights, especially in the world of Blackmagic. So you didn't know I was going to do this, but officially you are the uncensored Blackmagic professional. And so anytime we have Blackmagic questions in any realm, we're going to bring you on. Because we like having you on, and your takes are really good, and I think the audience really, really appreciates them.
Well, I appreciate that. If you ever need me at 3 a.m., I'm probably up making a video because Blackmagic just launched something. So
Yeah, that's the only time I get nervous is if Blackmagic does something, I know you're gonna be disappeared for like at least 3 to 4 hours because Kofi puts out a lot of videos, bro, like a lot of videos. He's slowed down a little bit now, but he used to be like cranking out videos, but you are so fast. Like that's like from like the time the news breaks and then your video comes out, like 9 times out of 10, I catch your video before I even catch that the news broke. So I'm like, he made a video about a Pixis? What is this?
I was watching a movie with Michelle last night at 12:30 and Blackmagic tweet, and it's like, camera app update. And she just goes, bye, before I say anything. She just went to bed and my video went up at like 3 a.m.
That's love and support right there, people. That's
Damn
love
right.
and support. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I appreciate your insight, your input, and your value that you add to this show. It definitely makes the show better. And so thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Enjoy rereading all those comments.
Oh, man. There's so many comments. Bro, what?
Well,
I feel like there was like 2 shows going on at the same time. I feel
Inception.
like there was like what was happening visually and then like a whole nother comment train that was going, and like I couldn't keep up. Like
it's unfortunate because it's like the show was incredible guests, incredible topics, incredible insight, but then it was like a barn catching on fire somewhere over here.
Like it was a little insane. I'm gonna go back through and read the chat. Guys, I'm sorry. Like you guys know, I normally try to bring up as many comments as I can, but they were flying. They were absolutely flying. And then a few of them were some super chats from some homies. I saw them and we appreciated them, but y'all know y'all was wilding. You're paying money to wow publicly.
People were calling people out.
Maybe we'll do I'm over this. This is not a drama channel. This is not a drama channel. We got to know what we're good at, what we're not good at, what we do and what we don't do. But whoa, what an episode.
I do think some like pullaways is there's going to be difference of opinions about how people want to run their businesses. Mm-hmm. And here's the cool part. I would pull this away that if you're someone on the sidelines and you don't necessarily like how other people run their business, maybe you might be motivated to start your own channel and do your business the way that you'd want to. You don't have to, and you can also have an opinion about how other people do their business. But maybe if you feel like people aren't doing it well, maybe you jump in the space and do it well.
Yeah.
Also, on the other side, be super honest.
Yeah.
If there's something about a product that is crappy, say it's crappy.
Yeah.
If you're getting paid for it, tell people you're getting paid for it. You know, people do stuff for money that are way worse than camera reviews. So, like, ultimately, at the end of the day, if you don't mislead people, you're not doing anything wrong. You just might be doing it a different way than other people would want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if the camera's not for you, don't buy it.
Yeah. I think that's really it. I think that's the big one. Like, we're making videos because we love it. Obviously, eventually at some points it becomes a business too. Mm-hmm. But for no one, when they started with 0 subscribers, this was like a business. You know what I mean? Like, everybody starts this with the passion that they just enjoy making camera videos and sharing that with other people. And normally it's because they want to nerd out about something and there's nobody to nerd out with. So you make a video, you put it on the internet, and you hope that you can find your tribe of people. So thank you to everyone who checked out this.
Brandon,
oh, go.
Tell them about your LUT pack that you're selling.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, we're definitely not selling a LUT pack. Jeez.
I had to. I was gonna say something way closer to like, but if you want to learn how to grow on YouTube, you need to buy our course.
No courses for sale.
LUT pack was more funny.
No LUT packs, no LUTs for sale. Honestly, I just loved having a great conversation with other YouTubers. We haven't had a guest on the show for a minute. And so it was good to have some other perspectives come in. Thank you to everyone who added value into the chat. Shout out to all the creator homies that were in the chat providing value. If y'all were going wild, y'all know you're gonna get a text message from me later, so just be ready for that. But Gerald, we good to wrap it up?
Yeah, we had like 2 uncensored lives.
This was twice as long. The episodes are not normally this long, but thank you for everybody who hung out with us for the entire time. I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.